Our next speaker is Ahri Tallon. He's an avid youth environmental campaigner and an advocate for education for sustainability. Ahri is an extraordinary example of what we can do if you put our mind to it. At just 20, he's already been active and instrumental in environmental projects across Australia. Please welcome Ahri.
Good evening. I'd just like to first off acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of this land. And they lived here for thousands of years, living sustainably. So I think we've all got a lot to learn from them. So it was a bit of an odd surprise for me to be invited to speak here this evening, but I'm really grateful as it's given me the time and the reason to clarify my thoughts on some of the things I'm really passionate about, like education, youth empowerment, and environmentalism, and the way I see these things intersecting to create an essential part of our generation's future. So I grew up in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales, in Lismore. I remember my home as a place of alternative thinking, of community innovation, and environmentalism. I was surrounded by rainforests, beaches, rivers, and waterfalls. My mother and father both studied environmental science at Southern Cross University, and as a result, I was from a young age surrounded by nature, sustainability, and activism. Through my teenage years, I ignored what my parents had to say like a cat avoids water. I was much more interested in goon sacks, surfing, football, hitchhiking adventures, parties, you name it. This all shifted when I was about 17 years old and my school took us to see an inconvenient truth. I came out and my bubble had burst. I was in shock and despair. It was the first time I really understood why I'd been raised the way I'd been raised. Maybe you felt this way before. Many people have. The following quote from one of my heroes, David Orr, triggers the feelings I felt that day. If today is a typical day on planet Earth, we will lose 116 square miles of rainforest, about an acre a second. We will lose another 72 miles to encroaching deserts. We will lose 40 to 100 species. Today, the human population will increase by 250,000. And today we will add 80,000 tonnes of carbon to the atmosphere. Tonight, the Earth will be a little hotter, its waters more acidic, and the fabric of life more threadbare. We are in the period of the 7th Permian Age. And the Permian Age, the first one was when the dinosaurs went extinct. So for a long time, I've had a level of depression and always will to some extent. It was only when I started working together with my friends to try and make my high school more sustainable that I began moving from despair to empowerment. The simple experience of working together in a group to make practical changes bit by bit moved me to a place of hope, optimism, and enthusiasm. It was then that I realised that our generation has a unique opportunity to create a world that is fair, safe, and sustainable, only if we realise our power to do so. After working to make my high school more sustainable, I began to strongly believe in the power and importance of education and empowerment to create cultural change. I think of it like an insurance policy. If we're not transitioning to sustainability today, with enough education, we will soon. This is the only insurance policy I like. When I moved to Sydney for university, this vision led me to the Australian Youth Climate Coalition, who were advocating to ensure sustainability was integrated into the Australian curriculum. Some of you may be thinking, why would you campaign on this? We learn about the environment in school. We have solar panels on the school roof. It's true. Small steps have been made. But we've also got to think about that globally, the countries with the highest education levels also have the highest levels of consumption and the highest ecological footprints. That university graduates are looking for jobs, and most jobs involve unsustainable practices. So why would a Vice-Chancellor go out of his way to make sustainability a priority within tertiary education? We need to recognise that the current education system actually reinforces the current paradigm of human domination over nature and the importance of the individual over the collective. Sustainability education is so powerful because it catalyses a shift in our paradigm that involves systems, futures, design, and world thinking to generate critical thought, technological innovation, and transformative experiences to create partnerships for change and the envisioning of a better world. It empowers young people with the skills, practices, and vision to create not only the world we need, but the world we want, where communities are healthier, the food and water is fresher, and people live the life they want to. Imagine if all schools, all places of education were epicenters for sustainability learning, and young people were agents of change to their families and their communities, where university graduates had the skills, the knowledge and the support to implement and innovate ideas for a green economy across all industries and sectors. If just employment transitions were created through free education and reskilling for those who are in environmentally destructive industries. Sounds great, doesn't it? The problem is that people have been trying to do this for the last 40 years, and it just hasn't happened the way we planned. Internationally, we're about to finish the UN Decade for Education for Sustainability. It ends in 2014. And domestically, we have a national action plan for education for sustainability. However, little progress is actually being made. The Australian Sustainable Schools Initiative has been cut federal funding. The Australian curriculum sustainability content is struggling to be transferred into state syllabus. Teachers aren't being provided adequate professional development opportunities. And for sustainability for universities is more about marketing. Our workforce is still in desperate need of inspiration and pathways to greening their careers. This is why myself and a group of organisations have established the Australian Education for Sustainability Alliance to advocate and lobby for increased funding and prioritisation of sustainability in the education system. The Alliance comprises of education, environment and youth organisations. It's going to make policy recommendations and try and get one of those untouched issues on the radar of the government. Our vision is that we can equip Australia to adapt to a climate changed world, that we can create resilience and harness the opportunity to transition to a green economy. Like the need to rapidly change our energy sources from fossil fuels to renewable energy, we need to rapidly evolve our education system to realise the true potential of quality education and empowerment for all citizens. The alternative is that we can sit back, procrastinate, and watch Europe and other transitioning countries take the lead. We will pay the cost of being unprepared for environmental impacts, and we will feel the guilt as we look into the eyes of our less fortunate neighbours in Southeast Asia and the Pacific, as they feel the full force of a problem they did not do so much to cause. Let's not go down this pathway. Let's choose a better education system. I mentioned earlier that system thinking is a core tenet of sustainability education. Complexity theory, the ideas that are needed to recognise the intersections of issues in a rapidly changing world, as Joe's pointed out. We need to consider how realistic it is that we can actually create a sustainable society. It can be argued that the current system that we're operating may have so much momentum that it is unable to be reformed, in which case, according to systems thinking, it needs to be replaced. Thus, it is our generation's duty to constantly observe and critically evaluate this reality. If we are serious about the prosperity and equality of humanity, future generations and all species, it may be that only an abrupt disruption and deconstruction of our political, economic and social systems will be able to stop the systematic destruction and plundering of our future that currently presides. Today, it might be a bit hard to relate to this idea. Imagine yourself in a future where you live with a growing level of oppression on yourself. Something we don't feel that often in Australia. That due to the combined environmental, economic impacts that you live with, your oppression becomes comparable to that which was triggered in the protesters in the Middle East over the last year. Today, as citizens, as a wealthy, developed country, we have living situations that insulate us from feeling this sort of suffering. But tomorrow may bring a reality that recognition that our environment's health is not just something ideological people think about, but is directly impacting our ability to survive. And thus, a revolution may not seem so radical. After all, radicals in the eye of the beholder, and the system may need replacing. Thank you.